Welcome to Wellness is a Way of Life, the podcast for female leaders seeking sustainable energy, clarity, and confidence. I'm Megan Swan, your guide on a journey to mastering wellness as an integrated part of your life. Let's explore personalized wellness strategies that truly resonate with who you are. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm so excited for this conversation today. I have two incredible women here from CensHERship, and they're going to tell us about themselves, the project, and their journey to getting here. We're going to dish into why this work that they're doing is so important and necessary as well. So, welcome, Anna and Clio.
Hi, lovely to be here. Thanks for having us.
I would love, and you can decide between the two of you who wants to sort of take this on. How long have you been working together? When did this relationship and this project come together? And we'll go from there.
Yeah, sure. Maybe I'll jump in first. Anna, you can take the baton on in a minute. But I approached Anna with this idea to start CensHERship at the beginning of 2024. So we're actually only going for less than a year at this stage, which is kind of incredible given the progress and the noise we've been making. But my work outside of CensHERship is that I'm a women's health advocate and have been talking and writing for years about postnatal and menopause health in particular, but also sexual well-being. And I was starting to see more and more of my content restricted and noticing it across other content creators, educators, brands, charities on social media. And I just thought, this is not okay. And in talking to lots of these female-led companies or charities, women creators, they were saying, we're actually being told all the time, oh, I'm so sorry, it was a mistake. Or if their posts were reinstated at all, or if their adverts were, reinstated or allowed through the net. And they were being told it was a one-off. And actually, the more I started talking to people, I was just getting an inkling that actually this was systemic. It was happening all over the place. And it just got me angry, or even angrier than perhaps I am anyway. I approached Anna, who is very active in the kind of femtech, women's health space, with her platform Future Fem Health. And she has actually been the perfect partner to me because she is the calm to my anger. Anna?
She's already alchemized the anger of the patriarchy, funneling it into her work. Amazing. Anna, tell us a little bit about how you jumped in.
Yeah, so Clio and I met at a lunch, I think it was last summer, and we kind of chatted about our shared interest. And as you say, I've been writing Future Fem Health, which is an industry newsletter all about women's health innovation and femtech. And the piece of that which really interests me is these systemic issues that founders face in the women's health space. So your listeners and you will know about the fact that VC funding to female founders is less than 2%. We've got an enormous data and research gap when it comes to women's health and female physiology. There's a lot of stigma and taboo attached to women's health. So at every point in the femtech innovation space, there are these barriers. And connecting with Clio and kind of understanding more about the censorship, which I'd heard about from founders as well, it was kind of like, actually, maybe this is something that we can take on and do something about. This is perhaps something that we can get some research done on, surface and take to these platforms and try to actually bring down this barrier, because I'm not sure I can solve the VC investment challenge or the research and data gap, but perhaps this piece is. So when Clio said to me, would you like to come in on censorship, I was definitely up for it. And it's been a big year with a lot of progress.
What's really funny though is that Anna right at the beginning was like, "Oh yeah, I'm looking for a little side project." And looking back on that comment now,
like a little hobby.
The amount of media attention we've had, the amount of press, the conversations we've been having, the collaborations we've been putting in place, it's a little bit more than a side project now. So, which is good, but perhaps slightly unexpected. But it's great that it snowballed in that way.
Yeah, well, you ladies are really stirring things up, and I absolutely love it. Before we get into some of the traction and the noise that you're making, can you give us a few examples for our listeners who are maybe not quite sure what we're talking about? Like there's absolutely no barrier to Viagra or medication that's for erectile dysfunction, and yet any sort of products that have to support female health, they really have to watch what words they put on. They have to like talk around things. The imagery is often censored. I mean, I can think of some examples, but I'm sure you might have some juicier ones, just to give people an idea of like what's actually happening to these women that are really trying to make a difference and ultimately facing so many more barriers.
Absolutely. And I mean, I can start off. I mean, we've both got loads of examples, and we've been fortunate enough to build relationships now with charities and brands. So we're kind of, we're talking the commercial side as well as the non-commercial side, who have shared a lot of their data with us. But one women's health and sexual well-being brands in particular, at the beginning was having 9 out of 10 of their ads restricted or not approved on the platform. And actually we did some research for them the other day, and the run rate is still 34% of their ads get rejected. So it's a difficult one to justify when you realize that the figures are that stark. We've worked with a charity who gave us the example of trying to promote a breast cancer awareness campaign and had to remove the content until they replaced a female nipple with a male nipple. The male nipple was fine, which from our perspective, obviously, men do get breast cancer, totally appreciate that. But the vast majority of those who suffer with breast cancer are women. So to, misalign the content as sexualized content and say that it's explicit and inappropriate for social media is where the algorithms, particularly on these large social media platforms, are getting it wrong, which is particularly galling when you look at the likes of Playboy and they have naked ladies all over their Instagram feed, and that's apparently fine. So
yeah, I mean, I had no idea. Sometimes I search something else and that's the only time I've come across, I'm like, oh my, this is like basically a porn account.
Yeah. And I think,
not search Rachel is all I can say. I don't know what I was looking for.
But I think what annoys me is that it's so hypocritical, and it means that women's bodies are allowed on there through the male gaze, or when it's in a sexualized manner. But when we are aiming to talk about it in terms of owning our own bodies, improving our own health, advocating for ourselves, that's where the difficulty lies. And that's what I think is so unfair.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, you focus on the ad space, but also in the ways that these founders are facing obstacles in the financial institutions, or, getting a loan, credit, all those sorts of things. It's not just marketing.
Absolutely. And Anna, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, so it was, when we first started, we decided to pull together a round table of some of these founders to talk to them about the social media censorship and kind of bring to life some of the experiences that they were having. And then what we heard during that round table was that it's actually not just social media censorship. So there's campaigns being launched with all the social media assets up and the emails going out, and then the e-commerce partner or the payment providers or the bank accounts are just pulling down the accounts on the day of a campaign launch, and so they can't run their business. We heard about insurance charges being up to 10 times what they know other businesses are being charged, simply because they're seen as a more risky business, or they were being flat out refused insurance because the insurer said that their business didn't align with the company's values. And when they asked, well, what are those values, they were told that, oh, they aren't written down, but you're just not a good fit. And this is where you've got the sexual wellness and sexual health startups, I think in particular, face this. They're just lumped into this category of sex work or pornography or some ridiculous categorizations that really don't apply, because you could be selling a female condom or a lubricant for postmenopausal women, and yet it's just being categorized in incorrect. And not to say that even some of the sex worker businesses are illegal in any sense, but it's just that complete misunderstanding of the businesses and how they're trying to operate and their risk levels. And that's what led us to then this second piece of research, which was about the barriers that founders face in the financial services area. And we spoke to 35 businesses and heard from across the board the issues that they were facing in all of those areas.
Yeah, it just made me think of a friend of mine and her brand. The logo is essentially like an ink blot V, the letter V. And like that's getting flagged as if it's somehow an image implying a vagina. And it's like, that is like a big stretch compared to some of the images I've seen on the internet. Like it's complete. It's so clear that it's systemized. And I love that you are doing the work to collect the data to really demonstrate that. So thank you. And I'd love to know, like, what is some of the key traction, like sort of your wins in this short time that you've been at this?
Yeah, and we're so grateful for those wins as well. So I think we have been blown away really by the response, because as soon as we put the call out to say, look, we're gathering these experiences in order to strengthen our argument that this is happening so that we can approach the platforms and have these conversations seriously, the response to our first survey was amazing. And that in itself, in terms of the way that we are trying to build a community, the way that we are trying to kind of put ourselves out there as the mouthpiece for this, has been incredible. We were featured in the Times, several other national newspapers here in the UK. After that first piece of research, we've been on BBC Radio 4 a couple of times talking about this as well. And we, have started to have conversations with the platforms. They are ongoing, shall we say. And there are those who have not yet engaged. So there is work there to be done. But it's great that we're even able to kind of get our foot in the door at the moment, because so many of the organizations that have contributed to our research have just been told that they're being gaslit. They're kind of being told, no, it's not you. It's, it's not us. It was just an accident. It was a mistake. Absolutely. And I'm like, how can it be a glitch? It's quite a lot of people at this stage. Anna, what have been the highlights for you?
Yeah, I think that touches on what's been what makes me proud about the progress of the campaign, is that now we'll see, say on LinkedIn, people commenting on these examples and saying, oh, you should, have you seen CensHERship's campaign? And it's people being able to realize that they're not alone in this issue. You might have a solo marketer sitting at home trying to get their ads up online and thinking to themselves, what am I doing wrong? Why can I not get this right? And having to say to their founder, our ads have been rejected again, our account's been restricted, our content's been taken down. But to kind of build this collective picture helps people to realize that they're not alone and that there's someone here that's really fighting this corner, and if we can continue to log these examples and bring everything together in one place, we can absolutely show that this is not just one-offs and glitches. This is a systematic pattern that's happening, and we need to tackle it. Even this week, Meta came out and were quoted on the BBC website saying that they allow women's health content to be published without restriction, and that's just so not true, because every single day we hear examples of the restrictions that are being placed on women's health content.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
it's a year of frustration, but also a lot of progress.
We can also just state like how frustrating it is trying to get your ads approved by Meta in general.
Anyway, yeah.
Like, and then these poor individuals that are trying to do something that's, I don't even want to say edgy, but anything that's to do with women's health, I think it has a completely different lens.
Even something that I think is really important to note with your interest hat on as well is that this really takes its toll on your mental health. As a founder, it's not as if you don't have other stuff to be worrying about. You've probably got less funding than an equivalent men's health founder. It was probably really like 10 times harder to get. And then so you've got this extra pressure on you because you've got less money and you need to not F it up. And then you're having to worry about how you market and self-censoring yourself. And it just adds that extra level of mental health pressure that you really don't need as a founder anyway.
Yeah. I mean, my more personal understanding of this from years ago is when I started working with a sex coach and just seeing like how she needed to show up on Instagram, and she would talk about it in the coaching containers, just constantly never spelling out sex and putting in like a dot or something, and all those words, like you can't say vagina on Instagram, or you can't type it, it'll be, and how, she's got, I don't know how many millions of followers, and every 3 months they would take her account down, and like how stressful that is as an entrepreneur, just like this complete additional layer of things that you have to worry about and stress about. It's so infuriating.
And it's actually, in some cases, without over exaggerating, it's a life or death instances as well. We work really closely with a women's health charity called the Eva Pill, and they work in the prevention of the 5 gynecological female cancers. And so each of those words, they need to be able to explain the symptoms to look out for, the information about those cancers, and what people should do. And if they're not able to say the words like vaginal cancer or cervical cancer, that's preventing them getting across potentially life-saving information to women, females, and through channels that meeting women where they are, because not everyone's going and seeking out this information. You need to reach people where they are. So that's why social media is such a crucial channel. And yet if they can't utilize that, it's really damaging.
Yeah, I think it's so important to understand that it's, things that can sort of become close to something that's sexuality, and, I don't know. It may be slightly more understandable how it gets linked to things that are porn, but like porn is not being censored. It's just, to your point, the male gaze version of it, totally fine. A woman talking about her empowerment through better connection with her womb space or something like that, it's being censored. And then anything that is talking about using scientific words to describe women's health issues is being flagged as if that's somehow not scientific or not important or not essential information. And yeah.
No, I was just going to say, I think what's particularly frustrating about this whole situation is that we know that the women's health gap, the gender health gap, is pretty big. Women are waiting 30 minutes longer than men are for pain relief in emergency rooms. There are twice as many side effects that women experience in the use of drugs versus men, because they're not tested on women in the first place. And a lot of the organizations and the creators and the educators that we are speaking to are trying to do something about that. They are trying to educate women. They are trying to advocate or help people advocate for themselves when they go and see a healthcare provider by giving them this information that we were never taught at school. And they're being restricted in doing so. So it feels especially frustrating, because if we're not going to, how else, other than what we're doing now in terms of education and dissemination of information, are we going to be able to close that gender health gap? You're making this even harder than it needs to be. I mean, that's my perspective anyway.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm sure you've read An Invisible Women. I highly recommend, if you haven't, that you do. It's going to blow your mind and probably infuriate you, but you know, it's fuel that you need to take action. And I love that that's what you're focusing on, is the data, because that's the language that, you know, capitalism speaks, algorithms speak. Like, it is, unfortunately, that's the only way that this argument is going to be made to move the needle forward. So what are you focusing on in the coming year, and how can people get involved?
Anna, do you want to take that?
Yes, so we're continuing our research at the moment. So we're currently collecting examples from founders and companies that operate in the EU on the social media censorship. As well as that, our existing survey is still open for anyone globally to log their experience of social media censorship. And they're both available at CensHERship.co.uk. The links to both of those surveys. We're also having some really interesting conversations with different platforms in the financial services space, with companies that perhaps are open to really working with us to solve this issue and making sure that the barriers are taken down for femtech startups and sexual wellness startups to access those services. So making sure that the right policies are in place, the training's in place, the awareness internally within those financial services organizations. So that's really exciting. And we'll continue to do the research, the raising awareness. Clio is definitely our brilliant spokesperson for this, you know, having managed to get onto the BBC radio. And, you know, we definitely see media as a key way to keep this issue alive, and hopefully continue to have those conversations with the social media platforms as well, and to work with them on solving this.
And we definitely invite those conversations as well. We're not here to kind of browbeat people. We want to make change and actually have some actionable points that we can kind of take to the conversations with these big platforms. So we definitely, you know, if any of you guys know someone who works there, send them our way, make an intro. We would love that. And also, you know, ultimately, you know, legislative change is something that we are also angling for and having some initial conversations about that. So fingers crossed, we're kind of working across the board on this, and we can actually make a difference, hopefully in the next 12 months.
Yeah. And I mean, without going too far down a new rabbit hole, like, I think it's a pivotal moment in that we're shifting into an additional layer with AI and understanding, like, these are, at the end of the day, I'm sure when you're talking human to human at these organizations, they understand the problem. We've designed systems, or not, maybe not all of the we's, you know, who has designed these systems, who's communicating or creating the AI, you know, guardrails, or, you know, where we're pulling all these rules from to create new content or whatever. It's so important to understand the origin of the problem in order to really fix it.
Yeah, 100%. And actually, I think that's kind of what's quite exciting at the moment about the whole AI, exciting and scary, but the whole AI conversation is a live one. You know, the historical algorithms that, for example, Instagram and Facebook were built on are definitely skewed and definitely biased. But hopefully, maybe we can make AI less biased. You know, the training is ongoing, you know, it's still always going to be learning. But I think, yeah, there are some big conversations there to be had about how we make this a little bit more balanced, because we all have inbuilt bias. And I'm not saying, you know, some of this is not on purpose, but we need to be open to the fact that maybe we're not getting it right, we're not doing it right now, in order to make those changes.
Beautiful. Well, I love this
Was that
conversation,
cathartic?
and it's kind of like it's stirring. Any sort of, I think that was probably like a very optimistic place to leave this conversation. Any sort of last words? Of course, we'll share all of the links that are mentioned in the show notes, and I know that you welcome any female founders wanting to reach out and get involved or share their story. You're always open to that. Anything else you want to leave us with?
I think I'm good. I think you summarized that really well.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been an absolute honor, and we are wishing you all the best as this important work rolls forward.
Well, thank you so much for having us. It was a pleasure.
Thanks, Megan.
Thanks for tuning in to Wellness is a Way of Life. Are you ready to make wellness a natural part of your routine? Let's stay connected. Go to meganswanwellness.com. Until next time, live well and thrive.